Hello, everyone. This is the Traditionist, and yes, I'm finally back. So I know that on all my channels, I haven't been active for a month, so basically all of June, and I explained that on my main channel because basically I was getting a job and I had just a bunch of other things to do. But now I am back. I've been doing my job for over a month. And the reason I'm here today, as you can tell from the video, is because it is Canada Day. So for those of you who do not know, July 1st is Canada Day, and that is the day that Canada became an autonomous colony in the British Empire. A lot of people think it's when we became independent. That's not actually true, but it was when Canada, as we know it, was formed. When we got our own government, we got our own prime minister, and that's when the colonies of Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, I believe, and I think Nova Scotia. Anyways, those four colonies all united into one, which is called Canada, and then later on that quickly expanded to include all of modern Canada except Newfoundland and Labrador. But obviously, because of that, today is a very important day. It's a day we celebrate our history and, over 1.5 centuries of our government being in place, of, Canada being a distinct nation. And so, it's a time when all Canadians unite, to celebrate our country, to celebrate our history until, well, this year, because, it's kind of funny enough, 2017, which by the way, was only 4 years ago. I remember we're celebrating 150 years, everyone was happy, we're all patriotic. Then, of course, 2020 came around and there was COVID, but, that was kind of expected. So, there weren't really everyone going out in the streets like they used to do. And then, well, today they decide, hey, out of the blue, Canada is just racist. Now, of course, almost none of you are surprised by this. I don't really think anyone is like shocked. Anyone has had their mind blown away. But I honestly was just wondering when this would happen. Here's the reason. So, of course, as we very well know in the US, the left just absolutely despises the US. They burn its flag, they hate anything about it. But in Canada, we never really had this. They don't really teach us Canada's evil like they do America's evil. Probably because of, we never had slavery. In fact, Canada was the first part of the world to abolish slavery. But nevertheless, though, um, yeah, there's never really been this, push that Canada's evil and Canada's oppressive. Not sure they talk about the Native Americans, having had it hard, which is true, but there's never been this constant, flow of negative, attacks on Canada and stuff. But, eventually I knew it had to happen. I think another reason is because generally, since Canadian nationalism is actually left wing nationalism and it's anti conservative, therefore Canadians are allowed to be nationalistic and patriotic, unlike Americans. But nevertheless, at some point, I knew, there would be one day when they would say, actually, you aren't allowed to be proud to be Canadian, and well, that's this year. So now some context, because I think it's important to know. I know the majority of you guys aren't Canadians, so I'll be explaining this. Essentially what happened is that around a couple of weeks ago, maybe even just a week ago, but very recently, they discovered like over 200 dead bodies from the Native American residential schools. And for those of you who don't know, what happened was that, back even quite recently, a bunch of, Native Americans were like forced to go to these schools where they were um, removed from their family and basically forced to become Canadian in culture and in religion. And so there's this one Catholic residential school where a bunch of bodies were found, and just the fact that over 200 showed just how many people were dying. A lot of it was because of suicide, because of abuse and all that. Definitely, like, I'm not going to be here like, yeah, it was a good thing, we should bring it back. Because clearly it wasn't. Like, nobody should be taken away from their family, just to assimilate. But regardless, though, this has been used as an excuse to basically cancel the entire nation of Canada, a nation of 37, almost 38 million people now. And just because 200 people died, and by the way, this was like all the way back in the 1950s, but because 200 people died in the 50s, now we can't be proud of our country anymore. And so now that is the reason why they're canceling Canada Day. At first they were like, oh, it's because of COVID, but in reality, they basically just came out and admitted that this was the real reason. But then this brings us to the the pretty obvious question: should this be this way? Should we not be proud to be Canadian anymore because of what happened to these Native American people? And well, the answer is an obvious no. Now, of course, really a lot of this is much more based on the guilt that, yeah, we stole the land from the natives. And sure, like, in Canada, there isn't really that much of an emphasis on, black people and slavery and all that, because, we never really had that. And so there's a lot more emphasis on the natives. And so even though I'm sure Americans will sometimes say, like, this is stolen land or whatever, in Canada, this is much more something that's often said. I remember, being at the university I'm going to, a lot of the time they'll start off by like saying, yeah, we're on the stolen land of this, this ethnic group or this ethnic group. And that's just really stupid, because the fact is, literally all land is stolen land. Every single group of people have taken land from someone else. And so that is fundamentally the reason why I do not care and why I do not think that we should be feeling bad to be Canadian just because of what happened, in the past to Native Americans, and that this is stolen land. Because the fact is, they stole land from each other and we stole land from them. So in reality, it's not even stealing, that's just conquering. That's literally what humans have done all of human history. And therefore, because of that, we cannot feel guilty for having their land. This land was taken by conquest, and that's just how it is. So, yeah, that's the first thing, just to put that out there. But now moving on to the second part, which is, okay, yeah, maybe you took their land, but you didn't need to be so brutal. And I agree. I don't think the way natives were treated was particularly nice, but at the same time, you have to realize literally no country is perfect, and also all countries, and yes, all countries have done horrible things in their past. I mean, even if you look at the Native Americans, they were scalping people, which is one of the most brutal ways to torture and a lot of the times kill people. And, even just outside the Americas, everyone, had really horrific um, things that they did, often to minorities, but even often to each other. And so if we're like, all right, we can't be proud of our country because, you know, we did some bad things to people in the past, that's just really dumb. I mean, we should be proud of our country because we actually recognize we did those bad things and we moved on. Because let's be honest, there's never going to be a single Muslim country that's going to be like, yeah, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have enslaved and castrated millions of Africans. Maybe we shouldn't have, ran the largest slave trade ever. Maybe we shouldn't constantly murder Christians just for not believing in Allah. No, they're never going to say that. In fact, they're not even going to say, yeah, we stole this land from the Byzantines or from the Persians or from whoever was there. Never going to say that. Like, they literally feel zero guilt about anything they did. And you see, that's the difference, that they don't even feel sorry for anything they did, where at least we feel sorry and we're actually trying to move on. And so I think that should make us even more proud, because we're the only ones who actually have the courage to admit we did anything wrong. And so, because of that, not only do I think Canada Day and Canada as a country should not be canceled. In fact, we should be even more proud than other countries, because we're the one of the few countries, along with most other Western countries, to admit that, yeah, we've actually done some bad stuff, but we're actually trying to move on and make progress. But of course, that's not how it works. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, Canada's a bad country because they did bad things to Native Americans. But, again, to that I say, my first point, all land is conquered and all countries have done bad things. And so, in conclusion, no, I'm not going to stop being proud of being Canadian. No, I'm not going to have Canada Day cancelled. And no, I do not feel bad that this land was taken from other people, because the fact is, if the Native Americans had had guns, they would have sailed over to Europe and taken their land. And by the way, rightfully so, because in the end, might makes right. That's just how the world works. And So yeah, that's just how it is. And so we should be proud of being Canadian or wherever you're from, because not only did we create one of the best countries ever, one of the richest and most stable uh, countries in human history. So that alone should make us proud. But we've even recognized our past, mistakes and moved on from that, and just tried to become a better society. And yeah, in many ways we are becoming a better society. Not morally, definitely not, but in terms of recognizing the past wrongs. But yeah, having done something wrong in the past isn't an excuse, to cancel a country. And also having land that's not originally yours isn't any excuse, because as I've, given examples of, those aren't things that any other country feels bad for, or that they're even willing to admit. So in conclusion, happy Canada Day to all my Canadians out there, and remember, never be ashamed of your country.